All right, all you groovy grasshoppers. It's 10 o'clock Thursday morning. Getting back on the regular schedule. We are doing some recording some more full change podcasts at 11 o'clock today. Obviously, those are recorded, but it's just could not miss getting on here at 10 o'clock today. We've been trying to pack in some more full change podcasts. So we've got more on the what do they call in the can? That's what it's called, in the can. So we did some fun ones on Monday. I think it was. We had Monday we did recorded one with James Patrick and Dave Maloney. That was a great podcast, talking a lot of hockey, kind of some predictions. A little bit. We were thinking we'd get into more predictions, but as we got going, chatting away here, it's a good show. It's good to see those guys again. And then we did two other ones. One with Danny Gare. I don't know if you remember. He was a captain of the Buffalo Sabres and Detroit Red Wings. Great player back in the 80s. Tough little son of a gun. 50-goal scorer. He can do it all. Carla Sherman, how are you? You magical creature. Good to see you there. Good morning, Susan. You groovy grasshopper, you. And then one of my favorite shows that we've done, we had Dave Soak. Dave Soak was on the 80 Olympic team, gold medal winning team, and was with the Rangers for 2 or 3 seasons, I think it was. And him and I are really good friends. Room together on the road, room together at home. It's one of those deals that you don't see each other for a while. Guys are like that. I think where they go for decades without talking to each other, and then we get on, start telling old stories, and obviously, as you know, I've been telling stories, and you kind of wonder whether you remember it correctly or not. So when another guy's involved in the story, and you get together, that it's pretty funny. We were dying laughing. We actually spoke a couple days before the show, and we're getting into some old stories. Some we can't tell on air. But Silky was with me the night. We were in Quebec City and we had the fondue dinner, and they had to come in. I thought they'd open up the window. The way Silky remembered it was they opened up an emergency door and had to throw the fondue pot outside the snow because the flame was too high. Oh, God. And again, the two of us together, we were just crying, laughing. It was funny telling these old stories. So I was blasting him again. He's doing well. Full head of hair, a little gray, but so that show will be coming out shortly. So good to see him again. Talk to him hockey. He was pretty, he's an intelligent guy. Really gotten into coaching. Worked in the financial world up in Boston. I can get to 2 fantastic daughters, adult daughters. So it's good to see him again. All right, Susan, what's going on here with our Rangers? They lost the other night to the Devils. I see your opinion here on how good they're going to be or not. And I really like to see them do well. Man, they had that window that they have there with Shesterkin. They've had a good run of goaltenders, right? You think about all the goaltenders they've had. Go back as far as Eddie Jockman. So this Rangers organization has some great goaltenders in the past, and currently great goaltenders as well. Guys like you think of the run like with Richter and then Lundqvist and then now Shesterkin. He mixed John Van Beesbrook in there. Even like some of the guys that I played with, they kind of a little bit of a rotation there. But go back to JD. Steve Baker had a good run. Unfortunately, he hurt his groin. Steve Weeks was a good goaltender, my old college roommate or teammate. Eddie Mio had a good run here. Glenn Hanlon had a good run. So it's some great goaltenders in this organization in the past. What else is going on in the world? All right, bone to pick day. All right, bone to pick. So when I moved into this condominium complex, it was beautiful. Again, all these shade trees and nice grass and all that kind of. I watched the guy come and cut the grass today with his big riding lawnmowers, and he doesn't even. The grass is so thin and just hasn't been kept up that he doesn't even have to cut the whole grass. There's only certain spots where the grass grows. Even they're not chestnuts all over the place falling on my truck. Truck is working fantastic too, by the way. I know you guys were concerned. I had this nasty noise it was making, and all of a sudden stopped. So maybe I just intimidated the truck. Is what it was. What else is going on today? Quiet day. Susan Brooks. Carla, what was it? With my car? They really don't know for sure. That's a great question. My mechanic has been fantastic, great guy, and it was really driving. You tell him it's driving him nuts. He did change the fluids in the differential, thinking that it was maybe a piece of metal that somehow got in there, and so he drained the fluids. Couldn't find any metal in the fluid that he drained out, but obviously put new fluids in, and that could have been the answer. Maybe it did. Maybe just couldn't find the fluids, or whatever, or the metal. So it's working fantastic now. It was the most. I felt bad for him because he's a great guy. He's got Shell up in Stanford on Chopin. Everybody is in the area and want to go to a great place. Let me see. Let me see. I'm hoping it's just getting used to a new system. Need to see more from Quick. Yeah. Well, I don't know what he's got left, right? I mean, he's obviously not the goaltender he was in the past. I know you know that, but I'd like that because he's a veteran guy. He's won 2 cups, I think. That veteran presence in the locker room, not just for Shesterkin, but for the whole team. They did a few of that. Like, I mean, they brought in 2 or 3 guys on short-term contracts, some older guys. Sometimes it's a little bit of a daunting, Madison Square Garden is a fantastic place to play, but it can be a tough place to play too. I mean, if things aren't going well, Ranger fans let you know. There doesn't mean what you don't understand at first when you're playing is that it's not that they don't like you. In fact, they love you. They love the Rangers. But if they're not doing well, they're deeply invested. The fans feel very much like they're part of the team, and they're not happy when the team's not playing well. And once you finally find out that too, it's listen, you're going to make mistakes. But like a lot of fans, but the Ranger fans are definitely like this. If you're giving it 100% effort, then okay, we'll live with the mistakes. We don't like them, but again, they can be yelling at you 1 minute because they're not happy with what's going on. The next minute, they just want to win. They want the team to do well, and so that's those veteran players have been through that more. So, but still, until you get to Madison Square Garden, it's not like any other place. It is a unique place in good ways too, man. It's fantastic building and playing. So. All right. Where is Larry? Well, Larry I have no clue. He put on quite a display when he was here. So we'll just leave it at that. Did you ever get to see Melly? But nope. Thank God. I won't get into details talking about him behind his back, but no, I did not. I had COVID. I was just finishing up with COVID when he came in, so I couldn't even get over to the golf. Well, it's rained that day anyway, so they didn't have the golf tournament. They just had a lunch. Connor Bernard said he avoids eye contact with the bench in overtime so he can stay on the ice. Is that just Ricky excitement or selfishness? That's a great player wanting to be. I view that as a really good sign. Instead of him like being "don't call on me" kind of thing, because he doesn't want, as a young player, doesn't want to be out front here. I like that he's saying, no, I want it. Like, even as a young player to have that ability, it's easier when you're, a 25, 30-year-old guy that's played in the league for a few years to say, I want the puck. I want the puck. And, all the great players that I played with, Phil Esposito, he would have the puck on his stick the whole game if he had his way. And I mean that in a good way. Gretzky the same way. He was famous for staying out those long shifts. And because he wanted to make a difference, and to have an 18-year-old like Bedard, obviously everybody knows how great he is, or supposedly he's going to be, but to have that attitude, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, if I'm a coach, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I like that. There's a few times with especially with Herb Brooks coaching. I was never, once in a while I was on the power play, but not very often. So whenever we didn't do it all the time. Once in a while, if there's a power play, if the situation would allow for it, I would stand up and I really felt like, okay, I'm really going to show him that I want to go on the extra power play. I knew I wasn't going on. The guys get a kick out of it too. I got to stand up. Herb, where do you want me? And he'd give me this look like, basically sit down, shut up. So let me see. Yeah, Bedard's good, right? He's got that confidence. Like, to be an 18-year-old and be that confident in yourself and humble too. I don't know if that's an act or not, but I think he had one interview after he was drafted. He said, well, if I make the team this year, well, of course you're going to make the team. First overall pick in the draft. He was pretty cool. Yeah. Kovalev used to stay just want him to prove a point. Yeah, that's right. I did that to a player. We were in youth hockey. I think it was Pee Wee or Bantam, whatever. Coaching my son's team, and great kid. This kid, one kid in our team, Michael Stolfi. I saw him recently. He's an adult now, obviously 33 years old, whatever that might. What's my son is. So I'm assuming he's the same age. and he was a great player, really good stick, but he had a hard time passing the puck. He just didn't. It wasn't like he was a bad kid or a selfish kid. He just couldn't quite comprehend passing the puck. So we're trying to get him to give. We wanted him to have the puck on a stick, but everybody, the other team knew he just wasn't going to pass it. So he had two guys on him all the time. So we're trying to get him to learn, give and goes and everything. So one game, he would come on. He wouldn't pass the puck. So I took everybody else off the ice and left him out there by himself. I was trying to prove a point, but then it wasn't fair to the rest of the kids. It was a close game and everybody was playing hard. So it was just like a brief second he was out there by himself. It was more like at the face off. I pulled everybody off and the referee's going, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, he can stay out there by himself. He's not passing anybody anyways." And then we had to go for, I think I've told this story too. We had to go for lunch after. It was one of those tournaments we were staying up there where it was. And I had to sit with his father too. He was a good guy. He understood. So yeah. Dougie DeVito, the man, he's had a little surgery. Hope you're feeling better. What'd you get done? I forget what you got done. Oh, I forgot. Our good friend Tracy Marie, sure, like most of you have heard, lost her mother. I think just it was the beginning of the week. So our hearts and prayers go out to Tracy Marie. We haven't seen her, and I totally understand. I think Tracy was taking care of her mother quite a bit too. So again, our prayers and our thoughts go to Tracy Marie. A tough spot when that happens. I lost both of my parents. Yes. Let me see here. Replacement left hip. Oh, okay, that's right. Dougie's got his hip replaced. Yeah. Nowadays, I mean, I don't want to downplay it, Dougie, and you just went through it, but it's they've really done a lot better. There's been a few former players who've gotten. I think Nick Vitillo got his hip replaced. I think John Tonelli, who I played with out in L.A., former Islander, he got his done. And again, they all good, all good. I wonder why that is for some guys. I think Marty McSorley got his hip replaced. There's been a few guys get that done. So again, just the Full Change podcast that we talked about at the top of the show. We've recorded a few here recently, again, trying to get some more in the can. That's like a professional saying. I don't know if you guys know that or not. And one of the fun ones we did was with Dave Silk the other day. We did Tuesday, I think we did that one. And today we're doing a show with a couple of former New Jersey Devils we're going to record. It's awful. Randy Velishek. And oh god, it's a guy. It was a right winger back when pretty physical right winger back when they played. That's awful. I don't remember his name. So we're doing a show today. More of like it's kind of fun when you get guys on. Especially for me, it's even somewhat more fun when it's guys I really don't know that well to play with. I don't know these guys now. Can't remember his name, so I don't know him that well. But because we tell old stories that I maybe didn't understand. Like again, we had Danny Gare on the other day. So we talked about, he's such a great team player. And like especially in Buffalo, we've been captain and everything. And then when you get traded, we talked about that feeling getting traded again. It's like, that's like, I felt the same way. Like the Rangers were my team. I was an assistant captain, won player awards. And when you get traded away, it's like, it's the weirdest feeling, especially when you're first trade too. I know we've talked about this before, but when other people get traded away, you got to keep going. You don't sit around and dwell on it too much. This happens quite a bit. And then, but when you get traded, it's like, where's everybody? So, and he was the same way, especially because he had been such a big part of that team. So, no, I don't think Gresh got his knee replaced. He was good I think there's been some talk. I don't know for sure about him getting his hip replaced, but I don't know where that's at. Let me see. Yeah, CCC. Hello, Tom. Keep missing you. Finally back. Lots gone on like Babcock, Jared Trudeau, honoring a Nazi. His government went after truckers with vaccine, but no. Yeah, I try my best to stay away from politics, especially Canada is my home country, and I was born and raised there. U.S. is my country now. I'm a U.S. citizen. But yeah, Trudeau is not. Some strange decisions, right? I think it was. Theo Fleury was calling for him to step down. He was really active, and I can't remember. This is a couple of months ago. Let me see. Oh, the Babcock thing. So yeah, that's a little bit of an old story now, but I don't know how much we've talked about it. Obviously it's JD is a good friend and former teammate, and really respect him a ton too. Like the way he carries himself, his work ethic. He just he was. I think I've told this too when. I first retired and I was I was obviously becoming an agent, but I was also doing broadcasting. And I spoke to JD a lot then. And he was really good, very motivational too. He was talking about how, he's very proud of his career as a player, but he didn't think he got as much out of his career as he maybe should have. The injuries were part of it too. Um, but he said that he would never let that happen again. He was going to be a broadcaster. He was going to be the best possible broadcaster he could. And the work ethic, he had those big satellite dishes before there's the small dish satellites. So he could watch games all over the place and, going to morning skates, talking to people. So when he went to a game, he had just tons of notes. Even Sam Rosen spoke about that, how prepared JD was. So that sometimes, you have 80 some games a year in the playoffs and preseason. They're not all going to be good games. So you can't always, as a broadcaster or color commentator, rely on the game being a good game so you can do your job well. So JD had so much other information that he could talk about. If there's a lull in the game, he could talk about something else that was going on in the National Hockey League or some of the conversations he had with other GMs or anything. So, JD was good. So with the whole Babcock thing, I mean, that was obviously a controversial call to hire him. But I saw the press conference of JD after, and he talked, listen, we did our due diligence, and he admitted, listen, we got it wrong. He didn't make any excuses. He said, we did our due diligence and we got it wrong. So, listen, it's one of those things that's going to go away, but let me see here. Barry Shelley, magical veteran. When you get traded, did you take it that you were needed or? Yeah, good question. You know what? I don't know how I took it. I guess I took it that, for the first time, it was the trade deadline. I never paid attention to the trade line before because I just felt like the trade deadline. I just felt like I was a part of the team, wasn't getting traded. I had hurt my back a lot. I was in and out of the lineup. I think Ted Sater had gotten fired by then, but even my time with him started off great, didn't end up well. So I stayed around the rink for the trade deadline thinking, geez, maybe something did happen. It's at 3:00. I stayed till 3. Nothing had happened. It just hadn't got registered yet. So by the time I got home, my ex-wife now, had gotten a phone call that I'd gotten traded. So, it's, I was upset. You look back at it, I deserved it. I wasn't playing well. So Phil did the right thing. And it actually helped me in my career. But, again, this was my team. It's the only team I played on. I'd never been traded away from a team before. As you're a kid growing up in college, you don't get traded away. So all of a sudden now you've been on this team, and I was a big part of the team. So to get traded, it was interesting. Kenny Albert, who got two of your best. Oh, thank you, Jack. Yeah, well, it's the truth with those guys. Actually, I'm going to get Kenny Albert back on a live show because he's got his book out now, Mike for Every Season. So he's busy. We spoke to, actually, we direct messaged each other this morning. So I want to get him on and talk more about his book and everything. And great guy. Him and Sam are the same way. Like two so professional guys. I mean, but sometimes you see guys that are stars like that, and they are. They're big time in the broadcasting world. In hockey, but all of broadcasting. But they just sometimes guys can be jerks. Like cocky or whatever. Not those guys. They're fantastic. So. Former, yeah. Oh, yeah. We had James Patrick on, who obviously was coach of that team before. And then they moved to Washington State, and the owners were U.S. People. They want to have U.S. coaches, and they hired Kevin Constantine. And clearly they got that one. 5 days into it, he got fired already. I didn't get all the details of what was going on there. Brianna, how are you? From Kalamazoo, Western Michigan University. Big nursing school there. Brianna, good to see you. Yeah, Constantine. What was it? Again, was it? Again, maybe you guys saw what it was. I didn't, or maybe I didn't, or did see. I can't remember what the details were with Constantine. But yeah, and he was a good coach there for a while, and he started in San Jose. Let me see. I felt hurt when you got traded because you had contributed. Yeah, but again, I appreciate you saying that. Thanks, Danny. I felt really good about my time with the Rangers, but again, at the end, it was such a cycle. And I've talked to a few guys about this too. Such a psychological thing with a back injury, because most of the time you're walking around, you don't look hurt at all. You're this guy that, and like a lot of guys, it wasn't just me. You could play through injuries, like torn tricep, a lot of sprained ankles, all that kinds of stuff, concussions, everything. And then now you're not in the lineup. I was I was always playing, right? I missed 2 games. Once at my end of my second year, one at the end of my 4th year, because Herb wanted to send me just to rest me before playoffs. And I hated that. And then I missed some games, so I got 6 weeks when I ruptured my spleen. So here's so many. The game when I ruptured my spleen, it's like, man, I was away from the team for a while. So it was, yeah, and that's the tough part. So when you're missing time with the back, psychologically, you think these are the guys looking at you like you're pulling the chute or whatever. Oh, hold on here. This is a good thing. Absolutely. I'm one of the nurses here in Canada. I work for the veterans. Oh, very nice. We've got a few veterans that follow us here. One, Barry Shelley's here. That's very nice, Brianna. Great profession to be having. Let me see what we got with Jack Smith. My late dad and I met Marv Albert at Garden around 1982. Marv was great. My late uncle worked. Oh, very cool. Yeah. Well, I guess what is it? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Because Kenny's fantastic. What a good man. A good family guy. Like the stuff he posts online, if you guys follow it, he's always got his daughters and family with him. Murray Graham from Brampton, Ontario. Murray, how are you? Brampton, Ontario. Man, there's a lot of memories there. So growing up, I was actually in Brampton, but I played for a town called it's Bramalea, and it just the way we're all worked out, and right next to each other, and such great. They had Victoria Park Arena was the first arena I ever played in. They just built it. The timing for me, I look back in my life, the timing of Victoria Park Arena being built, the junior team Bramley Blues coming into town, and me playing with us. A lot of things had to work out for me. I remember going to Victoria Park Arena the first time. They had the old mesh, no glass back then. It was the mesh going around, the wired, I guess, the wired mesh. Let me see here. Since a bias, I've always believed that you were. Thanks, Danny. I like that. Yeah. I look back at that. I think if I like the things I know more about today, about the mental health and discipline and all those things, I would have just handled things not totally different, but like even the physically, like I know more about my core exercise. Like when I retired from playing, my back was a mess, but I just wasn't doing the proper exercises. So now I do the core exercises and my back, I can do deadlifts and good mornings and everything. And some people are like, Tom, be careful with your back, but I just have done so much with my core that it takes so that's one of my recommendations to people too, physically, especially as you get older, not limited to older people, but just to make sure, because you lose a lot. One of the things you have to fight against as you're getting older is losing muscle mass. And that creates a lot of issues with your back and other things, because now your skeleton is taking all the stress. So it's like if you maintain that muscle mass, now it's muscles that are taking the load. So my back, again, if I talked about this before, if I treated myself differently when I hurt my back, I would have played another, who knows, another 10 years. Like James Patrick played 21 years. I had 11. I think, again, it's just more. And again, I got bitter. I'd lost that sense of being that ultimate like team guy. But you can't do anything about it. That's what it is. Just learn more. He made derogatory comments on a discriminatory. Oh, I see. That's a very professional way of putting it, Susan. I like that. That's good. Let me see here what we got. I know times have changed, but do you think players today play through injuries they play? I don't want to paint a wrong picture of the players. They are dedicated athletes and hard workers, fantastic. But I think the culture has kind of changed in that regard. We would maybe make things worse for ourselves with injuries because you're playing through them, maybe to make them worse. So I think it's not a matter of being tough enough for the players today. It's more that they're maybe more educated than we were. Not maybe they are definitely more educated, and they want to. Their body's a business for them, multi-million-dollar business. So they want to make sure that they okay, if you need to take some time off and take care of an injury, then you get, the theory is now I think more it's like you get back more, like now you're not playing hurt. Again, it's just a whole different culture. And again, I want to be careful because these guys are fantastic athletes. I see how hard they work. Like I see like a Chris Kreider on the Rangers. His work ethic is impeccable. Apparently, Dave Maloney was telling a story about they were doing a drill, one-on-one drill. He and Lafreniere. I always say that the wrong way. And Lafreniere was actually giving it to him, and he's not nearly as big as Kreider. I guess at the end, Kreider was so frustrated he threw the kid against the wall, against the boards. So now there, but yeah, the culture has changed. Again, I don't think it's like the courage or toughness of the players. I think it's the culture. It's smarter, right? I mean, we didn't know about concussions. I tell about the time where Nystrom gave me a concussion, spent the night in the hospital, came up and played the next day. Shouldn't have, but it wasn't just me. It was how just everybody did it. We just didn't know any better. It's like, that came up in a conversation with Dave Maloney as well, that player, Othman. And Dave's opinion was that he's played well enough to make the team. The problem, it's not a matter of whether he'll benefit, and maybe he will benefit from a year. I don't know him. It really depends on the individual player and their personalities. But it's more, is there a spot for him? What do you make a trade? You'd have to move somebody out. How did Chelios last long? Well, he's a great kid. I know him just a little bit, but all that I've heard about him, he was this guy back then, loved having his beers and everything like that. But again, apparently his workouts were just, he was an animal, riding the bike. So it was more, he just kept himself in such good shape. And again, that I worked at it, but I didn't work smart. I did not understand about the core and everything. So that, again, from all accounts, he really knew what he was doing, working out, and worked hard too. Vogelback's playing time. Did you ever feel that there's a player on the team GM wanted him rather than the coach? Yeah. Herb was definitely that way with guys. Herb had his own mind. Now, in fact, he was working with Craig Patrick as the GM, and obviously they'd worked together before with the 80 Olympic team. So I think, Craig knew what he was doing, bringing in Herb and how things had to go. But there's lots of times where you can tell when players weren't getting played. That it could have been veteran players. Steve Vickers wasn't a Herb Brooks kind of guy. He played sometimes, but he was an older guy that wasn't as great a skater. And, he played such a huge role with the Rangers, but it wasn't Herb's kind of guy. So his career ended. So, yeah, Murray, I heard about this Victoria Park Arena. Yeah, that it burnt down. That's too bad. A lot of great memories, man. Played for the Bramley Blues there. We had some great games. It was fun time. There's a Bramley Blues Facebook page for former players for Bramley Blues, and I chimed in at one time, and it was pretty cool. Coach, what does Brianna got to say here? The culture's changed. Not necessarily for the better. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, listen, like culture, the world has changed, right? Social media, all that different kind of stuff. Even we just we didn't care. We just wanted to play hockey. We're a bunch of beer drinking, truck driving hockey players who just it wasn't we just pay attention to anything. It was like, oh, okay, go ahead, do what you want. And again, it wasn't people commenting on social media too. I remember I should be careful. I guess I did care because one time Frank Brown, is a great guy, writing for the Daily News, wrote an article of me, was ripped into me pretty good, and I pouted for about a month. I wouldn't talk to him like a big baby. And then he finally came and talked to me. He says, Tom, you weren't playing well. And the reality was he helped me, because once I saw the article, I got mad and I played harder. And he was definitely right. But it was, I guess I should go back to my statement and saying we didn't care. In that case, I obviously did care. But it ended up being great friends. I still keep in touch with them too. Yeah. That's, what, I think he is. James really keeps himself in good shape. And that's the thing. I should be doing yoga as well. I don't stretch enough. That's one part of my workouts. I keep telling myself that, but I don't, because yoga is fantastic for you. And again, it's one of those things that, especially as you get older, I think it's even more important for you. Let me see here. Chelios was on with Chris Nyland, spoke about getting cut a lot and kept trying, finally made it, and never looked back. Yeah. Well, he was Chelios, as a compliment to him. Again, I've said this many times about a lot of players, was not the most skilled guy, but man, he's a competitor. Man. He was really, yep. Yeah, I've heard some stories from some of the old guys how Fergie did not like Roger Bear at all. And it's because here's a great player, his number's retired. There's a very good friend of ours from Singapore, Sheena. How are you doing? Magical creature. Let me see here. Yeah, it's funny, right? Because you could be like a good player and the one coach loves you. Then you go someplace else. Again, I had such a Freddie Shero liked me. Herb Brooks liked me. Ted Sater liked me at first, not at the end. We got to. I was with Robbie Fatorik, coached me in L.A. A great relationship. We'd been players and friends before too, so we knew each other well. And then Tom Webster, who I had a little bit here in New York, and then at the end of my career with L.A., we didn't hit it off at all. And I think part of it was the timing, because again, I just didn't handle things well at the end there with my back. So he got 5 cases of moles in a month, and Ryan Walter would give him his case of that's right. No, Sheena's not a punk rocker. She's I don't know if you call her nanny or housekeeper for her family. She's from the Philippines, and she takes care of family, 2 young kids. Very nice, sweetheart. She's not a punk rocker. Come on. My old junior coach, okay, isn't doing. I'm sorry to hear that. Wow, what a great guy. There's a man, this Rick Hay, and I've talked to it's Rich, but not a big deal. They're talking about people that make a big difference in your life, and he was certainly one of them. There's a lot of them for me, the coaches. And again, the timing of it too, right? So again, for me, the rink was built when I was just young. So that was the first rink I was ever in. I don't think there was a rink in Bramalea, so I would have still been able to play. But and then the junior team coming in when I was like 15 years old, and I was like the young, kind of young prodigy, I guess you'd call it. So I got to play probably earlier than I should have with the junior team. But again, that was the timing of it. Again, me being a local kid. And Ricky, I've told this so many times about how, and it's meant so much to me. And it's one of the things you don't remember or don't feel at the time how much it's meaning. But him getting all over me when we were doing breakout drills, it got to the point where that was an automatic. We did it so many times over and over, and he was always pushing me to do better and better. It's incredible. I think about it so much. Like, how many times during my career did I have to go back and get the puck, find the open man, do it as quickly as possible, get the puck up? But that was my job. Get it done. Get it off my stick, up to the forwards. That was it. When I, at the end of my career, when I'd hurt my back, they sent me down to Phoenix, was their farm team at the time. So the NHL guys, it's just almost an automatic that where that winger is going to be. He's going to be on the hash marks on the board. And you don't just throw it there automatically, but you pretty much know that's going to be where I'm going to pass the open man. You go to the minors, and those guys are now younger players, maybe don't understand the system as much, so they're not always on the board. So there's a couple times where I go to the minors, and I just get back and just throw it up to the hash mark, thinking the winger's going to be there, and he wasn't. And the guys are looking like, "You played in the NHL? Like, who are you passing to?" It was tougher to play in the minors because, again, I relied so much on my teammates to do their job, and again, not criticizing those younger players. They're young players; they're just inexperienced, so they're just not always there. I mean, I was frustrated then too. I was frustrated with my back, frustrated the way I was playing. So, yes. Let me see. Yeah, the Thanksgiving Eve massacre. Ed Johnson was called up from New Haven. Yeah. Yes. Let me see. Yeah. Do you think you're making more of a difference to people? Oh, yeah, 100%. Again, I don't really know the players. I mean, I think they're still the same now. You're so wrapped up in your career. I mean, you're hoping that you make a difference. Like when you meet young kids, especially, stop and sign autographs, say how you doing. Because Bobby Hull did that with me when I was a kid, and I was like, wow. Like he stood and talked to me for like 10 minutes, and I'll never forget that. But again, you're so wrapped up in your career. You're selfish, really. I mean that in a good way. You have to be there that way too. It's like when your teammates get traded. We talked about it before that you've got to keep doing your job. You can't be dwelling on the fact that maybe a good friend just got traded. It seems kind of cold, but that's it. So now, yeah, I guess I didn't think it was going to be like this when I started. I really didn't know what was going to happen when I started all this True Grit Life and social media stuff and Instagram and Facebook. But when do it, like learn, and I've learned so much more too about myself to make myself better and to pass that on to other people. Like the whole discipline level. I've talked before about, the 3:53 in the morning, doing the video on Instagram and 3:54 on Facebook, and how, that was really done initially for a former teammate, Jim Thompson, who had a rough upbringing, lived in a trailer park in Edmonton, and his trailer number was 3:53. So I was going out, like at 3:50, 3:55, not doing it as discipline. So he asked me to do it at 3:53, and I said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. It wasn't a big deal. I was out that time. And then I realized, wow, that's made me better. It's another notch in my discipline, but I've helped somebody else. So the more I've learned about the mental health, having people like that Jackie Long on, the hypnotist, we had her on a few shows. We had that epidemiologist on. I learned so much more. I hate to say it this way because the pandemic was terrible for so many people, but I learned so much more during the pandemic about cooking and healthy foods. So again, as I've gotten better, it's kind of circle around. So I've gotten better myself. I've helped other people, and I love doing it now. I've learned. There's a couple of times where people were coming to me with some serious issues, and it was kind of draining at first. I just wasn't used to it, and now I realized, okay, that's people look to you for help, and so and you feel so much better when you help somebody else. Like you go to events like that Lust Garden Walk that I was at last weekend. When you're there, you're supposed to be there to help other people. There's survivors there, people that have lost loved ones. But it's such an emotional thing that when you leave, you feel better about yourself that what you've done. So let me see. Yeah, just started on Special Forces World's Toughest Test. The celebrities, athletes, and help it. Oh, I'd love to do that. I saw that. Yeah. How about they've got that Golden Bachelor? That's the one that a marketing company had approached me, and just for apply. It wasn't like they were saying I was going to be the ambassador, but just to apply. And I was thinking at first, like, okay, the idea is to get married. Oh, so funny story. Let me see. I like funny stories. That's after Gilbert was cut by the Rangers played Boston and Chapman had Fergie on, and his hand was shaking. He came in like Fergie. Oh. Yeah, I mean you got to make a move like that to get. I mean, eventually all players have to retire or move on. I mean, you think even like, I know this was a tough one too. Like with Brian Leach, the career he had it, and they traded him. You get like I guess you get why they have to move on from, but there's got to be certain times that you'd like to say maybe that player should finish his career with the Rangers. But again, that's the job of GM. You're going to make some tough calls when you're a general manager. Bill, Big Whistle, Bill Chadwick. I've told the story, I know, but he had a radio show out in Long Island. He had me out as a guest, and Bill was, and I hope I say this the right way. Total respect for him, but the joke was, he would sometimes have be drinking beer when he was on the show, and he seemed like he was having some fun the night I was out there, and as an Islander fan called in and said something about, I can't remember the exact quote. It was something about what's it like having a shower with Ron Duguay. Well, Bill didn't understand the question. I did. And he said, "Oh, Tom, what's that like?" I'm assuming he didn't understand the question there. And I was younger then too. And I was scrambling to figure out how to answer that question. I got out of it somehow, but he's funny, man. He's a good guy. He's going to set the game back 10 years. A big brawl with the Kings. And I watched that. That's a fantastic game to watch, the brawl. That's what he said during the brawl. He's just going to set the game back 10 years. The other one I love watching too, I hated the result. It seems like that must be the best game I think I ever played in, was the game against the Islanders in Game 5 against it was Game 5 in 1984. Yep. We got is this a new new listener here? New friend? Let me see, new friend. Yvonne Rasmussen Plekon. Oh, can't wait for Oxy, especially my Cubs didn't do. Love seeing you on social media. NMU, Northern Michigan, my old alma mater. Very cool. Love seeing it. Became a Ranger fan because of you and Steve Weeks. Hope to make the game this winter. That's cool. Marquette, Michigan. Oh man, I'm going up there. So Marquette, Michigan is a great city. It's tougher to get to because it's kind of isolated. It's on the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, right on the southern shores of Lake Superior. When I went there, it was more of a mining town. Mining was there. Now that's closed down. It's much more of a, like a little bit more of an artsy little town now. But it's a beautiful city. I mean, right on the water, Lake Superior. It's just cold. But if you go up there, like when you're on the beaches, it's like you're in the Bahamas or something. It's just beautiful. The Lake Superior is crystal clear. But there was times though in the summer when we were there, especially after I turned pro, we had some money, so I was always buying kegs of beer. We go down the beach and sit on the beach, and it was beautiful weather, but there'd be ice still floating in Lake Superior because it was still so cold. But a lot of history there too. Yeah, great time up there. Sorry, Yvonne, I didn't see that part of it at the end. I'm living with cancer and it's a struggle. I'm sorry to hear that. Our prayers are with you. Yeah, that was the thing. The Lustgarten Foundation is to raise money for to get a cure for pancreatic cancer. It's interesting that one woman was up there talking, and with the statistics, the survival rates and everything pretty low, and it proved a lot. They've done a lot and gotten much better. But and the sheriff or Suffolk County Sheriff Luton, I think it's pronounced Luton, Louton. Luton, him and I have become good buddies. They've got the thing, the National Night Out. They have an event out in Suffolk County there, a big kind of to raise awareness so people go out and see what the first responders do and police and everything. So that's a cool event to go to. And then he was at the Lustgarten. He spoke at the Lustgarten. He'd had cancer twice. And then we walked together at the Lustgarten walk. So we knew each other, but really got to know each other even better. On the walk, I don't think he'd mind. He talks about it publicly. He lost his wife to suicide about 21 years ago, I think it was. And two, boys. They're older men now. So tough time. He's got, again, 2 bouts with cancer and lost his wife. But what a great guy. He's always out in the community, like really a thoughtful person, and good leader, obviously, too. So Jack Smith, what do you got here? Jack, he was on with Chris Nyland and told how Nicky Fotiu scored on Van Buren, Colorado. He was 18, won 2-1. Nicky scored on by accident. Oh, Beezer says it's by accident. Beezer has no problem with his confidence. So he's going to tell you it was by accident. Yeah. Nicky, I remember the play. Great shot by Nicky. Just kidding you. But Beezer, he does love himself. And it's good to have confidence, especially if you're going to be a goaltender. But that we go back to that 84 game 5. Oh, the thing is, it was so we were up 2-1, and we played at the Garden in game 4. We should have won that game too. I think we were tied, and I think it was one of the Sutters scored to. I think it was overtime. I don't think it was overtime, but they won anyways. Game 4. That's the game we should have won. But that game 5 was incredible watching it. Man, Kenny Morrow scores. So we played against each other in college. He was at Bowling Green, and I was at Northern Michigan, obviously. And back then, it was the Central Collegiate Hockey Association, the CCHA. And so we played against. I think he was. I think I played against him at least 2 years, maybe 3, and then he left to go to the Olympic team. But they have the all-decade teams for the Central Collegiate Hockey Association. So Kenny Morrow and I were the 2 defensemen for the all-decade team. So our careers kind of ran into each other a lot. And somebody win the gold medal, and then 2 months later he wins the Stanley Cup, and then he wins 3 more after that too. So, yes, Derek Stepan, you're right. I liked him as a player. You were terrific. Yep, yeah, I liked him. Intelligent guy. He was. It's too bad he got traded away. I can't remember what the circumstances are when he got traded, but was it salary cap issues or what it was, or contract. But yeah, I liked him as a player. Good, solid, penalty killer, face-off guy, score goals. I was thinking the same thing, but I came across as know-it-all. I know. Listen, he was a fantastic athlete. And, it wasn't like he was a bad teammate, but he was getting interviewed by somebody. And he said, during the John Van Beesbroek era, he called it. Like, usually a player doesn't name himself as an era. Like, you don't say that's my era. Like, you can say, well, time when I played, but like John, like that was I was during the John Van Beesbroek era. We used to give it to him. Oh God, yeah, funny stuff. All right, guys, I'm going to cut it a little earlier, unless you got some questions or comments. We're going to do at 11 o'clock, so in 15, a little more than 15 minutes, we're going to do a recorded a show with Randy Velichek and God, why can't I remember his name? Deb, that's a great question. We will answer this one because it's you and because it's a good question. Hold on, that's a good comment. Yes, that's a good comparison. Very good comparison. Yep. But to Deb's question, usually you can care less about preseason, the results. It's more how's everybody playing, because the coach is going to maybe do things a little bit differently in a game. Worry less about winning the game. They still want to win, but okay, it's also to see how players fit into the situation, especially younger players. With the older guys, they know what they can do, but how do they mesh together? You're switching up the pairs, the defensive pairs. Is it going to be Trouba Keandre Miller again, or is it they're going to switch those up? So there's all little stuff like that goes on. Maybe cuts into your ability to just concentrate on winning the game. But I guess what I'm more concerned about the Rangers, we need to see them with some bite, like have the bite that they had in the playoffs 2 years ago, right? So that's the biggest thing to me. And again, I like what Drury's done, bringing in some of those older guys that are short-term deals for a few reasons. Now, those guys are want to keep playing, so they're on a one-year deal. They're going to want to play hard so they can get another contract. So they'll be motivated players. You know, you hope it isn't just always about money, but that happens. So, let's see. Yeah, you're right. It's preseason, so I wouldn't get wrapped up in the results or how they're playing as a team. But at some point you say, okay, we gotta flip the switch here, guys. It's real game time. So, yeah, and who knows? Hold on, let me see here. Wrong quote here. I need to put Kreider back with me again. I assume that is going to happen, but you know, it's against preseason, so they know how well they can do together. See, that's a given, right? Like Laviolette, we'll have seen him play in the past. You can go back to look at film, so he knows what they can do. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But who knows? I mean, maybe there's other. You know, you got to spread it out a little bit too sometimes. So yes, the Devils are the real deal. They are a good young team too. All right, everybody. Everybody have a fantastic weekend coming up. Let's make sure we're all helping each other out there. Again, our hearts and prayers go out to Tracy Marie with her losing her mother. And let's make sure, again, we're helping each other, right? Like that shoulder check stuff, like we're reaching out to people, put your hand on somebody's shoulder, say, are you okay? Do you need help? We're here for you. It's a big thing of just making sure that somebody knows that maybe is depressed a little bit or whatever, that there are people there that care about them. So everybody have a fantastic weekend. We'll see you next week.